where history is made. And inside he comes, that's what he wants to do! Oh, that is wonderful!
She has performed superhuman feats. A world record indoors this winter just gone. But is she going to get there? Is she going to run out of track? No, she's not.
It defies description. How about sensational?
offrez-lui une place au musée du Louvre.
جمال هنا يقترب من الكمال.
Ambitious, but brilliant! What's he going to do? Oh!
الله الله.
Can you believe it? The wait is finally over! Oh, yes! Oh, they did it! I cannot believe it!
Exceptionnel.
You are really seeing the most extraordinary finish.
¡Qué barbaridad!
¡Oh! Lo que acabamos de ver.
It's unbelievable stuff. You've got to see it properly to believe it.
Welcome back to InFocus, and thank you so much for staying with us. And as I mentioned, we'll be continuing our discussion with Ms. Clark, who is the Permanent Secretary within the Ministry of Social Development. So, Ms. Clark, let's pick up where we left off with Mr. Mousse and talk to us a bit about the Convention on the Rights of the Child. As we mentioned, it's, of course, the 35th anniversary being celebrated here in St. Kitts and Nevis. And can you share a bit of how you would have seen that convention? Because, of course, you've been in social development for quite a while. How that would have helped to transform our children and the rights protection here in St. Kitts and Nevis?
Certainly. Legislatively, as indicated, through the OECS Commission with support from UNICEF, we have the new suite of family legislation that speaks to gender-neutral language when it comes to child maintenance. So it's the custodial parent versus the non-custodial parent, therefore providing some equity between fathers and mothers. We've seen work as it relates to, as the videos were showing, parenting. Giving tips about how to safeguard and protect. As you were speaking about, we have both policy as it relates to social protection, and of course the OECS Commission is working on a child protection policy. So then we have tool development, whether it be management information system, assessment tools. One of the areas that we distinctly suffer from in the region are specialists as it relates to children issues, so child psychiatry, child psychology, child counseling, those specific areas to be able to know how do you experience and explore the trauma of an 8-year-old child. Compared to an adult who can voice all emotions. And so with support of UNICEF and others grounded by the convention, it allows us to establish those systems, programs and services to ensure the implementation, the experience lived by children of the convention.
Mm-hmm. And there are quite a number of rights that are outlined in the convention, and I think it was up to 54 of them, right? Of course, some of them would not necessarily fit into the context of St. Kitts and Nevis, for instance. And we thank God that we are a zone of peace. And so, of course, we are not having that conflict in terms of persons who are fighting against each other. Of course, there are some antisocial activity, but it's not in large scale in terms of army and civilian against the army or anything like that. And so we have to look at then the local context of these things, and one of the things that have been popping up as of late, I suppose, in terms of persons that we would have seen migrants fleeing from their countries and coming to other countries, and we've had some of that here in St. Kitts and Nevis. So where does the convention fall in helping us to shape the way that the government treats those children in particular?
Yes. A child is a child irrespective of nationality, birth, and circumstance. And so the convention provides for us to provide equal treatment to all children. Now, treatment and access are two distinctly different things. And so, of course, we are still resources of all kind impacts that access. So while a child has any child in St. Kitts and Nevis has equal access to education, it doesn't parlay into equal access and enrollment in public school. It just means that you get education, so there are private school options. Same thing with health and all the other provisions within that. So wherever there are children that might come to St. Kitts and Nevis through with consent of their parents, and even we've seen some experiences of others, because we have a history of guardianship, so the aunt will come and the like. We do still see to the needs of the child within that, and to provide them access to all services and provisions, whether in the public or private sector.
So, which rights of the child have seen the most progress here within St. Kitts and Nevis, and which areas still require greater focus and improvement?
Certainly. Definitely education. As indicated, St. Kitts and Nevis, even prior to our signature, already had the declaration of free access to primary and secondary, and we just recently had the fees associated with tertiary level removed. Then we are talking about representation, the student council initiative in schools, providing them a voice within that regard. We also have seen provisions as it relates to healthcare. The Children Medical Fund that was recently established, so that children that need chronic overseas care, the parents can be supported in that regard. And then even before birth, we now also have the new program of the High-Risk Pregnancy Support Program. So whether they're in utero or born, there's a commitment to making sure that children can live out their lives. As the representative indicated, our challenge has to do with mental health work. Of course, working out those co-parenting issues, so really child's issues, majority parent issues, making sure that everybody, the convention states that everything is done on the best interest of the child. Where the child is able to voice, you must give the child a voice to do that. I know a voice is the hardest thing for us of African descent, because it is do as I say, not do as I say, not as I do. And so we are told to keep a child's place. But where there are issues involving children, we have to ask the child, what would you like to see? What would you want to experience? What would good look for you? And keeping the user, because many of us in business know what it is to engage the user experience, because the persons with disabilities have a phraseology that says nothing for us without us. And I think we should apply the same to children. Of course, we are appropriate ages, so once they can voice and understand, we should be asking them, what does education look like for you when you get to high school or when you get to work? What does work look like? What you think is a Nevis be? And keeping that vision in line with the bigger vision of adults, policymakers, and government will ensure that we're actually building a product that all can be comfortable with.
So how do you convince parents that it's important to engage children at that? Because, as you mentioned, the culture has been do as I say, not as I do. And there seems to be that willingness to, I wouldn't necessarily want to say stifle, but to ensure that the child, that they have to keep their place.
It continues to be the biggest challenge for this introduction, because as indicated, we're launching the Child Rights Ambassadors Program. And I had to assure parents, this is not about building contention in your home. I'm not sending back in a tyrant that will tell you, I have the right to privacy, I have the right for information, I have the right for a voice. It's about rights and responsibilities. And so we now have to work on the way that we engage with children, the way that we engage with their parents, to be able to provide that safe space. As I started earlier, end of the dinner conversations. How was your day? What was the highs? What were the lows? What we could be do differently? And that helps your child to understand emotions, contribute to the discussion. Giving children responsibility, chores. I know we don't have the cane and the taking out your sheep and goats in the morning anymore, but they're simple chores that we can give to children, because that responsibility translates into adulthood.
Take out the garbage.
Correct. Clean your room. Make sure your clothes is in the wash basket, because those make for good partners in life too. And so we want to make sure that we provide that space. But yes, ensuring, because ultimately the convention also assures parents and families are fundamentally the protectors of children. The state steps in when there are challenges. But fundamentally, all rights and responsibilities rest with parents. But we know, as there's no manual, as there's no script to parenting, a little bit of help goes a long way. And so if we're able to help parents build children that, as we say, can speak. I'm a new parent myself, and I say to persons, I now cannot fathom if a child is abused and cannot articulate that, because all of its life has been told, you have no voice, you have no say, you have no feelings, to then get the child to identify, speak on what happened, to be able to get justice for them, it's earth-shattering indeed.
Yes, and of course, you can see the difference in young persons here in St. Kitts and Nevis and in some larger countries. I'll use United States as an example. If you go to a younger child and you stick a microphone in front of the child's face in the US, they go on and on and on and on, as opposed to down here, they're shy, they're reserved, they don't want to speak. Sometimes they even hide. It's very important for them to speak out and say what they say. But of course, there are guidelines.
Correct.
Because they must be respectful, of course.
And I think that is the balance within which we want to ensure the next generation, that we are working to ensure your rights, but within a culturally responsible and a respectful environment. And that, to me, requires much greater conversation, because, again, children exist under the remit of parents. And so we've got to get the society to say, what does that respect look like? We've oftentimes heard, I mean, one of the things I looked forward to about being an adult was finally getting to hear all my good mornings, good afternoons, and good evenings that I've given out throughout my life as a child. But that's not the value anymore. I have to fight to get a good morning in the morning when you're walking to work or at business, and I'm like, okay, is this the new St. Kitts and Nevis, where children are not taught social graces and that you have to say it because the person is just an adult? But when I speak to young people, they're like, no, respect is earned, not automatically given. And that takes me back a bit. So I say, okay, how do I display that respect for you? They say, well, yes, sometimes you could tell me good morning. Now that doesn't reconcile with my childhood brain, because it was always just do because the person's an adult. But I think through those avenues of conversation, to understand what we interpret as disrespect, they see as a different construct. And having those intergenerational conversations will go a long way as well.
We're not going to have a discussion too long on parenting, because I think we're breaking down into it. But there's just one thing that I also wanted to mention as well, and you touched on it earlier, where you asked about school, engaging the children. There are some of us who would say, how was school? And they would say good or bad and just leave it there, rather than using the strategy to say, what did you learn today in school, or what happened today in school. That invites the conversation to take place.
Yes, and again, as we stated, there's no guidebook, but those are some of the strategies to our public service announcement that we're going to give tips to parents, how to communicate in language, open-ended questions, questions that evoke a response, just to be able to know, because I'm sure the parents that are participating in the Child Rights Ambassadors program this morning have been calling me since 7:30 to ensure, is the bus on time? Is the boat on time? And I love that. And so we want to make sure that when they come home now, the first question is, what did you do today in the sessions with thing? What did they teach you? What did you like? What is it? And so through those lines of communication, the child knows to trust. Not just trust because they have to, you're the adult, but trust because they know my voice matters to you.
Right, parents are extremely important because they are the first line of defense in protecting children. All right, so as we mentioned, the 35th anniversary of the ratification of the Convention of the Rights of the Child here in St. Kitts and Nevis. What does that mean? What does the anniversary mean really to the government here in St. Kitts and Nevis, and to you personally as well, too, because of course, as you mentioned, you're a new parent.
I think persons need to put it in context. We ratified the convention in 1990. We became an independent state in 1983. So just a couple of years after proclaiming our independence, one of the first set of persons we said we're going to protect. We had human rights, but the special subset was children, because I think it goes to the underpinning that we all know there should be no harm that ever comes to a child in St. Kitts and Nevis. We should all feel it in a visceral way. And so that demonstrated act on the international stage demonstrated that. To me personally, it's a charge, it's a challenge, but I think it's a worthwhile goal to aspire towards. If we can have children in St. Kitts and Nevis, that just the tenets of the convention states, they know their name, they know their identity, they know why they're proud to be Kittitians, why my son would be proud to be a Clark, why he's proud to be from Newtown, why when he steps into any engagement, he's able to respectfully share his opinion, because that voice comes with a lot of responsibility as well, but should always be given the space to be heard.
Okay, and so the activities that are being used to celebrate it here in St. Kitts and Nevis, what are they? What can persons be participating?
Certainly. So as indicated, tomorrow, on the actual day, there will be a message.
When is the day? That's tomorrow?
Yes, the 24th of July is now etched in the annals of St. Kitts and Nevis, and we will continue to make sure that that day receives the prominence that it does as we ratify the convention. We are launching, the Deputy Prime Minister and the representative will have a sit down with the 20 students that will be launched as child rights ambassadors, and then they're also going to have some engagement with some children at the summer residential camp, you know how special that is to Deputy Prime Minister Hanley.
That's being run by the Department of Youth Empowerment. Right.
Yes. But throughout the Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, we're training those primary school and some high school students in the tenets of the Convention of the Rights of the Child so that they can help us. We understand that my ministry, the Department of Probation and the Department of Probation and Child Protection, we miss the primary schoolers. There's a lot of focus on what happens in the high school and with adults, but we're not understanding how it starts from early childhood and primary school. So we want to be able to start to engender that, support the Student Council initiative by also having ambassadors within there who we can use to put out messages to parents, to adults about the convention, about their lived experience and what their expectations are. So they're getting quite a bit of training to prepare them for that collaboration with our ministry over the next coming year as we pledge. Again, our commitments for the convention is to make sure that all persons know what it is, understand what it means, and can just pick what actions they want to support within that. So if it's a parent, giving a voice. If it is a teacher, making sure that understanding in the classroom. If it's a doctor, securing health. Just pick from it and we all commit, because remember, child rights are human rights. So if we learn to give it at that young age, it will so replicate as we all grow older.
So the child rights ambassadors, how many are there and how were they chosen?
There are 20 of them from schools across St. Kitts and Nevis. Our first cohort was from the Department of Youth Empowerment Star Girl, Star Boy program. A lot of them graduated, the stars that they are. And so then we went back to the schools and asked them to nominate students that will be entering 4th grade through 6th grade at their primary schools. It's a smaller cohort compared to the number of schools, but we think it's a good start for a pilot. And again, it's representative, has participation of St. Kitts and Nevis. And so the students will receive their training and then with support from our ministry, be engaged in some year-long activities around the convention and the realities of children in St. Kitts and Nevis.
And so their primary responsibilities will be to
advocate, information share, and communicate.
Okay. And what type of evaluating system and reporting mechanism will be used? Oh,
certainly. So in collaboration with our ministries and departments of education, youth empowerment, St. Kitts and Nevis, social development, St. Kitts and Nevis, there will be further training for the adults around the Convention on the Rights of the Child in order to support the action plan that the children has. We will be engaging them with their voice, doing evaluations. We will be canvassing them for what they're seeing and experiencing in their schools and life to be able to come up with programs and activities for which they can do. And of course, asking them at every interval, how was this? What do they see more needing to be done? So making sure that we have that monitoring and evaluation kind of approach. But of course, a child-friendly version. Not too many forms, not too many writing, but making sure that at all times we check in to make sure that their voice is being heard and understood.
How will we know who they are? Will there be a launch to the nation?
Oh, yes. They're going to get their mock... what do they call them? When you issue somebody...
Instrument of appointments?
Yes, the instruments of appointments. Their first little instruments of appointments, they will get designating them. They will take their photos and the ministry will launch through publications and postings, the little profile about who they are, what they do. So we ask for persons to support them as they go about their engagement in the year coming and to support them when they come around with their activities.
Is date set for that launches yet?
Yes, it's tomorrow on the actual day.
Okay.
So once they finish engaging with the representative and the DPM, they will then be issued their instruments of appointment.
So we certainly look forward to learning a lot more about the program and seeing them within our communities and being able to use peer-to-peer education to influence change here in St. Kitts and Nevis. We certainly look forward to that. There are persons in Nevis as well?
Yes, they are.
Okay, right.
From primary schools and secondary schools in Nevis.
Right, okay. Good to know. We'll learn more about the program a bit later. So we're going to take a final break, Ms. Clark, and then when we come back, we're going to speak about the school-based assistant program that the ministry has. It's something new and exciting, and certainly we'd like to share a bit more with the public at that time. So we'll take our final break then. Stay right there. We'll be right back with more In Focus.
If you haven't done it as yet, Please do it today. Subscribe to our YouTube page at SKNIS Media for regular updates, live coverage, and even more information on your government. While you're at it, like, share, and interact with our Facebook and Instagram pages at SKNIS Media and SKNIS Info.
Welcome back to InFocus. We continue our discussion with the Permanent Secretary within the Ministry of Social Development, Azilla Clark. Now, as mentioned before our break, Ms. Clark, the School-Based Assistant Program, what is the primary goal behind this new system that is being used?
Certainly. So, social protection refers to all of the programs that a government does to support its people. Many persons are very familiar with those in education. The early childhood subvention, where I think $50 per week is paid to children enrolled in early childhood centers, both public and private. Then you have the school uniform assistance program, where parents that may have challenges providing uniforms for school participation can apply for those. You have the high school book loan, which many of us knew as SELF, whereby textbooks are provided to needy, in need children to support their high school endeavors as they prepare for CSEC and CXC examinations. And then, of course, the CXC fee waiver. We want productive and ambitious and certified children, so we would never want a parent to decide how many subjects a child should fit based on the registration fee or the cost for registration, and so that is also provided to persons in need. The Education Ministry has set their threshold for households in need as persons earning less than $4,000. Of course, with our ministry, through this collaboration, the ministry is using its own assessment tools to make some recommendations for others that may be in need, but that is the education process. So, because we do school uniform assistance program in the summer months, we thought, okay, how about we consolidate the way that persons access the service? So instead of doing school uniform in the summer and then signing up for the subvention either at the end of the term or the beginning, and then when you get to school signing up for SELF, let's consolidate a one-stop area for every person that is interested in those array of services to be able to express their interest in them and then make the application for. The expression of interest is necessary because, again, we have quite a lot of information on persons already from various programs, Back to School, Aspire, etc. And so it's a way for us to consolidate that information and pre-populate that so that your application process can be even speedier. And then, of course, once we have the indication of your programming or programming needs, that is shared with education, because again, now they will be able to have information much more readily to be able to plan and execute. Because the worst you can say is, well, I only bought two dozens of this book, but there's all of this need, or I did not buy enough for there. So it gives them an opportunity to know projected need as well, to do better planning, because you must know who you're servicing in order to do. So all of this is an area to streamline the efficiency and effectiveness of social protection programs between social development and the Ministry of Education.
And it's all being done digitally for the most part. And there's a video, before we come to your discussion, there's a video that your department produced in terms of promoting the program. And so I'd want the producer, David, to run it at this time so that persons can get a sense and get a feel of exactly what we're talking about. So David, if you can run that program, that video for us now, please.
Applying for school-based assistance has now gotten easier, with 4 programs added to one portal. Yes, you can now apply for school uniform assistance, high school book loans, CXC examination waiver, and early childhood subvention, all in one application. Here's how to apply. Visit the registration link at www.socialdevelopment.gov.kn or scan the QR code on our school-based assistance flyers. Complete the expression of interest section to indicate your intent to apply. A valid social security number and email address are required. Gather the supporting documents for your application. A valid ID such as a social security card, driver's license or passport, as well as proof of address, income and expenses, and visit the satellite offices located at identified community centers in each district to complete your application. Application period opens June 18th and ends October 31st, 2025. Please allow a minimum of 14 working days after application for confirmation of status. The new school-based assistance portal. Applying has never been easier.
Right, so Ms. Clark, tell us, as we looked at that video, and those who are watching, well, listen on radio, they would have heard it, of course, the use of technology. Why was it important to use this means now of having it done digitally as opposed to the traditional way?
Well, I think it keeps a thrust on where the Federation is going. Wherever you are in St. Kitts and Nevis, you should be able to have ready access to services. And so in the comfort of your home, you should be able to at least complete an application, or in this case, the expression of interest, which would then trigger to the Ministry and the Department of Community Development and Social Services your interest, to prepare the officer when you come in front of them to complete your application. Secondly, it is a consolidation of information. As stated earlier, we have quite a lot of information on persons, and that should allow to make the application process smoother. So it's not asking the same set of questions, it's confirming what is already on record to expedite your applications.
But there's some who would say, as you mentioned, that the information already is on record. There's BBW that I benefited from. I'm not speaking me personally, I'm just saying as an example. I benefited from and registered for BBW. I did it for Aspire, of course. I would have had to identify my children. I did it for LIFT. I'm receiving LIFT as well too. All that information was given. I've been given that information time and time again to different government agencies. So why do I need to do it now?
It is, we are aware of that concern, and what we say is we want to avoid inclusion and exclusion errors, because if we freeze your profile as of as of July 22nd or 23rd, what happens when you become unemployed August 1st, but we've locked you in for at least a 6 or 12-month period to determine your eligibility for all things within that? And so it is sort of an abundance of caution why we ask for persons to be able to verify what we have on file for you for every program that is coming. It is our intention in very short order to do what we call the social protection floor. So once we have your information, you will now know what all you may qualify for. But as we build towards that, again, out of an abundance of caution to avoid inclusion and exclusion errors, we want to be able to verify persons for every program that they apply for right now. Once we are comfortable that we have enough of that information, and of course we build in the remote or digital appeals and grievance process, then we're able to do so. Because even just going to the Budget Boost wallet, that was but I didn't get it for April, but I haven't worked since March 15th. By the time the information comes to Social Security to us, you are still on record as being employed, or you've missed a couple months because now the notification of unemployment is a little delayed. So we do want to be cognizant of those errors and err on the side of caution.
For those who would say that, well, my information, again, I'm sharing it, and who would have access to it, what do you say to them?
We always indicate to them that throughout the system there are tiers of authorization. So the officer that you see in the community center, your social assistance officer, will be primarily the one that enters and confirms the information. Then it goes up to the management of community development and social services to make the approvals. At my end and at the data analyst end, we see anonymized data. So we'll be able to just see number of applications by location, sex, age, etc. We won't actually see you. If I need to access your profile, that will be recorded, and if at any time there's any leak or any untoward, the system will identify who all has accessed your information. But I assure the public, every member of staff, except those that were just recently employed or maybe over the last 2 months, have already signed the government's confidentiality agreement, which indicates if they violate any confidences appointed to them by virtue of their position, not only can they be fired, but this legal action can be brought against them. Because we want to give persons the assurance that when you tell us something about you, it is used just for that purpose, and if we need to do anything else with it, it is scrubbed of your personal details and just looked at for data purposes.
But even though the personal details are scrubbed, of course, persons are still aware that they're dealing with a human being that has needs,
Correct.
and so that compassionate side is also factored in as well too.
Yes, we're working on all of that, contributing to the client experience with training in customer service, conflict resolution, listening skills. Because again, I always tell my staff, they are my tools. I don't benefit from having batons or any other tool. They interact with persons. But I'm also cognizant of the fact that they're people as well. And so whatever they're experiencing that day, they can't give the best service to persons. So we are looking at approaches to be able to have breaks in their work period. I mean, when you've gone through 150 applications in one district for a particular, but you deserve a morning break to just wrap your mind around who you are and what you're doing to then get back to your work. So it's that provision for staff as our internal clients that we're also looking at to improve the external client experience.
So how do persons enroll?
Certainly. So as indicated in the video, the form is available online at our website, and that's called the expression of interest. Once you've submitted your expression of interest, the screen will appear, a message will appear on the screen indicating to you that, again, this is not an application, it is the expression of interest. So the information that Mrs. Bridgewater, who was the star in the video, would have been in her couch collecting. You walk with that information to the community centers as listed, where satellite offices are, and you complete your application there. Then, stated within 14 working days, you will get a response. As this is the second time doing our school uniform assistance program as well on the JAD platform, many persons would already had a JAD or school uniform wallet. It is populated with the allocation of, once approved, $250 per child, and you can take that to the approved vendors to purchase items related to school uniform, socks, shoes. Yes.
Right. Okay, and so for those who may be a bit unfamiliar or afraid of technology, or may not even have the needs, so the means to do that, can they have that expression of interest filled out at the community center?
Correct. Yes, the social assistance officers at the satellite offices can take you through the entire process once there. So if your intention is to have the expression of interest completed on the day, please walk with the information so you don't have to be going back and forth.
How have registration been proceeding?
Oh, at last check, I think last evening, we were just close to the 1,000 mark of expression of interest. I'm happy for the interview to clarify for persons, the expression of interest is not an application. So if you completed your expression of interest, you still need to visit the community center and speak with the officer, because our application transitioning from expression of interest to applications is a little on the slow side. I think, as I stated, we're just short of 1,000 expression of interest, and I don't yet have crossed the 500 mark for applications. So we want persons to do so. We will be doing our best to reach out and indicate this to you so that you can follow up with the application process. And then shortly there should be the population of wallets for persons to go out and purchase, because I know it's the end of July and nobody likes to be shopping for school supplies in late August, September.
But with 4 programs, school-based assistant program, being targeted by this new system, 1,000 registrants, it seems a bit low, doesn't it?
Oh no, remember, applications have multiple children.
Okay.
That's just the application. We promise to do better data analytics and being able to put out graphical information as to how many children does that application pool actually service, by schools, grades, etc. So persons are aware of the support provided from these programs.
Okay, and so can you speak to us about the partnership with the Ministry of Education in terms of being able to get that information and getting it right?
Yes, so the 2 technical officers between our ministries have been collaborating to ensure that, again, that baseline information that is in the system about the child is correct, and then also ensuring that the information that we capture as per the expression of interest of the applicant is therefore shared with the focal point for each program, so that they can go through and do their own planning and projections for their own. As we know, the new academic year starts in September, as a definitely part of the focus. In addition to the school uniform, the next most important will be this school subvention, so that parents can have that coverage, because of course the school books, I think, resume at the start of the school year. But these 2, it is best to have them confirmed and engaged prior to, so parents can definitely know that they have that support coming into the new year for persons that are in early childhood and having the response to the application for uniforms.
So of course this is coming up to the end of July, as you mentioned. As we record this live, it's July 23rd. So persons are wondering, as you mentioned, you want to go out and not necessarily shop in August, and of course the government have given duty-free concessions on school supplies, VAT days, but what about the deadline? There are some persons, as you mentioned, it's 4 different programs, so there are 4 different deadlines for each. How does that work?
Certainly. So for, there's actually only 2. For persons in early childhood, primary and secondary, the application closes on August the 31st. That is to ensure that we have things ready for September. Persons that are doing school book loan, going into tertiary school, CFB, etc., they have until October to be able to make that application, because of course the results from external examinations have to come through. As it is a pilot, again, it does not expressly state that you cannot, the only thing that you are restricted from applying afterwards would have to be school uniform assistance. That would normally come through the school system as like a special need, somebody that was missed or something like that. But through education, they're also strengthening their systems to be able to facilitate additional requests after the application deadline, because of course this is our first year piloting this, and so we don't want to just have arbitrary stops where a child could never get the benefit thereafter, considering that we don't, as a government, as a ministry, while we try to put out our information as widely as possible, we miss some people. And so there's also, when they show up for school at the start of the school year, they will also have an opportunity to do so, as well as if they might have been enrolled late at an early childhood center, they will still be facilitated to the paper option. And then once we've met as a team and looked at how the system respond, we'll be able to then expand its reach as well as its access.
Time is running away for our program, Ms. Clark, so I'll give you an opportunity to make any final comments, and also to share the website address so that persons can know where they can go and complete that expression of interest.
Yes, the website address for the Ministry of Social Development and Gender Affairs is www.socialdevelopment.gov.kn, and right on the front page is the link for the expression of interest. I think I don't know if there'll be time at the end for that video to show again, where they have the QR code for persons to scan with their phones to be able to access. And again, the satellite offices are open Monday through Thursday, 8:30 to 3:30. There are phone numbers provided because, you know, we are persons as well. We might wake up with good intentions to get to work at 8:30 and something happens. So please store the number for the officer at the community center closest to you. Give them a call, confirm that they're there, and then make your way down with your documents to be able to complete the application process.
So final comments, anything you'd like to share?
Yes, we celebrate with the Federation for being the first in the OECS to ratify the Convention on the Rights of the Child. While it might mean nothing to some, it is important for us because it's another demonstration of our commitment to children and the most vulnerable in St. Kitts and Nevis.
And given the fact that the number of treaties and protocols that Mr. Mousse shared, St. Kitts and Nevis continues to lead the way.
Most definitely. Small, but Talawa.
Thank you so very much, Ms. Clark. We'll have to leave it right there. We'd like to thank you, viewers and listeners, also for joining us for this edition of InFocus. We trust that you will join us next week at the same place, at the same time for another edition. Remember, it's your government, your business. I'm Ian Richards.
Applying for school-based assistance has now gotten easier, with 4 programs added to one portal. Yes, you can now apply for school uniform assistance, high school book loans, CXC examination waiver, and early childhood subvention, all in one application. Here's how to apply. Visit the registration link at www.socialdevelopment.gov.kn or scan the QR code on our school-based assistance flyers. Complete the expression of interest section to indicate your intent to apply. A valid social security number and email address are required. Gather the supporting documents for your application. A valid ID such as a social security card, driver's license or passport, as well as proof of address, income and expenses, and visit the satellite offices located at identified community centers in each district to complete your application. Application period opens June 18th and ends October 31st, 2025. Please allow a minimum of 14 working days after application for confirmation of status. The new school-based assistance portal. Applying has never been easier.
Join us every Wednesday for InFocus, a weekly talk show produced by the St. Kitts Nevis Information Service, where we provide exclusives with key persons within the government and discuss pertinent, relevant, and interesting matters that affect us all. Tune in every Wednesday, live on ZIZ Radio and streamed live on Facebook at SKNIS Media and ZIZ Online. InFocus, your government, your business.